Hello everyone. I thought I would pop by and just wish you all a happy new year on my YouTube channel, and I thought I'd just pop by and create a simple project, mainly because after Christmas, I don't know about you, but I always struggle to get going again. I've had a bit of a declutter and I've been tidying up. I've still got lots to do and I've still got lots of plans to sort, but sometimes I like to create something simple just to get myself going again, which is what I'm doing now. So first of all, I hope you all have wonderful Happy New Year celebrations and wishing you all the best for 2024. Now in 2024, I'm going to continue with my posts on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook, just inspiring you with any designs that I come out with or previous designs. So today I thought we'd just create something very simple, mainly because then it just gets me going again. So just grabbed a few things just so that I can create something, and it's not going to be anything too complicated. So what I've got is I've literally grabbed some distress oxides. So I've got picked raspberry, spiced marmalade, twisted citron, cracked pistachio, salty ocean and wilted violet. Just some nice bright colours. The only thing I didn't do was get any colouring medium out. Do you like how I've got a bit of paint or texture paste on there? So what I'm going to do is do something very simple. I'm using Pink Frog smooth card that's 300 GSM and it's 4.5 by 6.5 inches. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to my card just so that the inks actually flow. So we'll begin with some picked raspberry. Now I was going to use my re-inkers because the concentration of colour is wonderful, but then I thought, well, a lot of you do have the distress oxide inks, so we'll use that. I'm using a big brush and I'm just going to add the colour. Now the advantage of having that water sprayed on the card means that the colour will move a little bit for me. And I've just remembered we've got no kitchen roll in the house. So my husband's gone to collect some kitchen roll, but we've actually got none in the house. So that's a good start, isn't it? So what I'm going to do then is use the spiced marmalade. So I'm just going to take my brush and just remove some of the pink, just so it's not quite so pink. I'm then going to use this spice marmalade. Let's take that spice marmalade, and I'm going to keep the colours in order that I'm using them. So I'll take that spice marmalade, pick up that colour, and we'll just add a little bit of that colour. And you can see I'm not doing anything that's at all technical, not in the slightest. There we go. Kitchen roll would definitely be better rather than a soaking wet wipe, but there you go. I'll just make do with what I've got. So you can see, because I've got water on the card, it blends nicely. I can spritz with a bit more water if I wish. So I'm then going to move those out of the way and then going to go to my twisted citron. And my focus, I've been a stamper for about almost 3 decades, and it's what I love the most, and it's what I'm going to concentrate on going forward is stamping and creating cards with stamps. I love using stamps and stencils, so I'll be concentrating on that. And I like to stick with something I enjoy, and stamping is definitely something I adore. So we'll just, now what you could do is you could have another piece of card on one side and you could mop up the extra ink onto another piece of card if you wished. But I'm just keeping this very simple, and it's just a way for me to just get going again. I'm then going to take cracked pistachio. So let's take a little bit of cracked pistachio. I think this is definitely a well-used ink. Let's just pick that up. That one is definitely a well-used ink and isn't as juicy as the other inks. Well, that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem. Let's just add that. And then I'm going to go straight on to some blue with Salty Ocean. Now that's a very rich dark colour, so I don't need too much of that. And just add some of that, of the blue. Now, if you don't want the watery effect, you could always just blend the colours in this order with your ink blending tools, if you preferred it that way. And then I'm going to use Wilted Violet. Again, another strong colour. So we'll pick up that Wilted Violet, and we will add some of the Wilted Violet towards the top. There we go. We'll just give our brush a bit of a clean, because it's just going to be full of that ink. And then what I'm going to do is just give that a little bit of a spritz. Now what I can do is I can go back and look at the colours. So first of all, before I do absolutely anything else, I just need to make sure that I get rid of that, most of that purpley colour on there, because I don't want to create mud. Now I'm going to add a little bit more of the pink. So I'm going to take my picked raspberry and just add a little bit more of the pink, just because the pink is not quite as visible as some of the other colours. So we'll just leave that there, and then we'll just grab our heat tool. Just going to plug that heat tool in. Now, if you let the colours dry naturally, you will have more of a concentration of colour. You will also have the darker areas here at the edges, but I'm going to dry mine. Now, because I'm drying with the heat tool, that will cause your card to curl. It's just natural. So you can let it dry naturally if you prefer. And also you can spritz water on the reverse of the card to flatten that out again. Now, I have no kitchen roll on my desk, so what I'm going to do is just mop up some of the excess ink onto another piece of card. Just mop that up on an extra piece of card, just so that you can see that. You can see how much ink is just on my card. So let's just give that a dry. And what you get is a lovely sort of watercolour effect. So just give that a thorough dry, because I don't want the colours to mix too much, because you don't want to create a muddy effect. Now I've dried that a bit, and I'm mainly doing this because I haven't got the kitchen roll to hand. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of that pink. So there we go. Just spritz that with a bit of water and then just dry that. Now, if you blend your inks with your ink blending tools, you're obviously going to get a completely different look. But I love this sort of water effect. And I love building up layers with the inks. I love the fact that the ink is reactive to the moisture. Let's just mop that up. It's funny how I miss having the kitchen roll in my craft room. I'm just going to pick up the little bits of orange, and this time just little tiny touches and then spritz with water. I'll just move that down there a bit and then just dry that with the heat tool. So I'm just building up that layer of colour, just so we get a little bit more vibrancy. Now, another way you can do this is with your watercolours, and that will be nice and vibrant as well with your watercolours. But I always like to use what I've got to hand, what I've got in my collection. It just makes me happy. And what I keep doing, which is aggravating me, is I keep putting the heat tool just where my camera arm is, and I keep moving that. Now I'm just cleaning the brush just to make sure that we don't blend colours too much. Don't want to blend those too much. And you can see there's a lot of orange in that. So I'm just making sure that with the orange I can quite easily make mud. And what I'm showing you is I've come upstairs into my craft room with no thought, no ideas of what I'm doing, just to play and just enjoy. So the cracked pistachio, if you remember, was a very sort of dryish ink pad for me. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of that colour. So I'm going to pick that up and just add a little bit more of that sort of greeny colour. I can see the twisted citron here quite clearly. So let's just give that a bit of a spritz with water, just so that it reacts and oxidises. So we'll give that a little bit of a dry. And it just makes a lovely, lovely simple background. So sometimes you can make things complicated when there's no need, especially when you're just starting back to creating after you've had a break, just like me. Just drying that ink off. So I've now got a lovely watercoloury effect. Watercoloury, that's not exactly a word, Tracy, but there you go. Watercolour effect to the card. And I always think when it's January, it's nice, just get a bit of colour out and it cheers everything up. Cheers me up. So let's just take this bit of card that I just mopped up the extra there, and let me just take off the extra so it doesn't get muddy. Actually, no, I won't bother, because that's quite nice actually as it is. But that gives me two backgrounds. But you can see I've still got the moisture here and here. So you can see it takes quite a bit to dry that card, especially when you've used as much water as I have. But you can keep continuing to add those colours to add more vibrancy each time. So we'll just leave those for a moment now. And let's grab a stamp. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the periwinkle. I love this little periwinkle stamp. I just think it's so lovely. Let's just move this out the way. So I'm going to use my periwinkle stamp, and I need to decide on what I'm going to colour with, what sort of medium I'm going to colour with. And I want something that's quite bright. I could use the oxide inks if I wish, and then I can keep the colours. Let's see what it looks like. So we'll grab a piece of scrap card, just so we can add our stamping. And I automatically pulled my black ink out, but I may not necessarily use the black ink. So I'm going to use periwinkle, which is stamp set 987. You take our acrylic block. It's funny because it feels really strange with having Christmas and then not creating for a few days. It feels very strange. Now, do I want pink? Do I want purple? Do I want... Let's have a mixture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp with my picked raspberry Distress Oxide ink. So I'm going to colour. I'm not going to colour, I'm going to stamp. I can't make my mind up what I'm doing. So let's just add a little bit of that stamping. And the oxides, because they're a pigment diffusion and they've got that pigment element, they stamp really beautifully. So it works really well. What I like to remember is, because I've got that oxide layer on there, what I need to remember is to just give that a clean. I don't normally clean my stamps, but when I've used oxide, I give the stamp a clean, because then if you go on top of the oxide with your VersaFine Clair, it will cloudy the black, and you don't want that. So I just give that a little bit of a clean. So we'll just grab a little bit of a finer brush. And what I'm going to do is, where's it gone? We're going to take that wilted violet. So we'll take the wilted violet, a little bit of that colour, and we'll take a little bit of the picked raspberry. And to make it simple for me, let's just make sure that's clean. To make it simple for me, I've decided to go with the same colours that are in the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that picked raspberry, and I'm going to load my brush with the picked raspberry. And I'm just going to add a little bit more of the colour with the picked raspberry. Now, this oxide that we've already stamped with is also going to react to the moisture that's on my brush, which is what you want, really. You want that to react. Now, for me, that is a very sort of flat colour. So let me just see. Let me just add a little bit of the purple, because what this will do, yes, the purple, you can see I'm just adding a little bit of the purple. Now, normally I like a piece of kitchen roll on the side just to take off the excess. I'm just going to use my hand, but you have a piece of kitchen roll because it will take off the excess moisture. And I'm going to have to grab some toilet, oh no, a tissue, bear with me, a tissue. Like you do, a tissue that you blow your nose on when you're desperate, like Tracy. So I'm going to pick up the purple, and I like to remove a little bit of the moisture, just because it gives me some control over where I'm going with my colouring. It means it's just easier to colour. I don't sort of go too heavy-handed with the water or the colour. So I've just got a bit of colour on there. Now I need something a little bit darker to give depth. So I'm going to use Villainous Potion, which again is that purpley tone. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that dark colour, take off the excess moisture and just bring in a little bit of that darker colour. Now I'm using this water brush, but my water brush is broken, so there's actually no water actually in this brush, so I'm using sort of very little moisture. Take off the excess and then just blend it out. And what I love is that the oxides blend beautifully. So I'm going to pick up that Villainous Potion again and just add a little bit more of that darkness, just to give me depth. Take off that excess, and I'm going to sort of use a dry brush excuse me, a dry brush, just to blend that out. Just so you can see where we're going. So I'm going to pick up the Villainous Potion again, and I'm going to just add a little bit of darkness just to the edges, just to give it a little bit more depth. I will lift this up just so that you can see, just to give it, oh, wrong one, Villainous Potion. Can you see, by just adding the sort of purple, the Villainous Potion at the edges, it just gives it a little bit more depth. So I'm still going into that Villainous Potion, and I'm just going to add a little bit of colouring just to the heart. And I've just left, I'll lift that up again, a little bit of a white area. And what I'm going to do is take that Villainous Potion and layer the colour again. No more moisture, I've not dipped into the water, just with the dry colour. Just to give a little bit more darkness to that design. So I'm going in sort of very dry with the Villainous Potion. And what I'm trying to show with this demo is that it doesn't have to be overly complicated. I'm trying to show you that you can do something very simple, and you don't have to be a colourist or an artist, which I am neither, and you can still get good results and be pleased with what you've got. I'm then going to dip my brush in the water. Now look at all that pigment in there. So I'm going to take off all that moisture, and then I'm going to go to the lighter purple, which is the Wilted Violet, which I've got here. So I'll go to the Wilted Violet, and we don't want that there. So let's take the water again and wash again. Take off the excess water, and let's go in to that paler purple, which is the Wilted Violet. And then what we're going to do with that paler purple is just blend out the colour just so that you've got no harsh lines. Just blend out those harsh lines. And it's like you're almost scrubbing it with a dry brush. But just blend those out, just so that you can see that. Can you see the depth that you're building up with that? And for me, it's just about patience. That's all it is. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that lighter colour again and just make sure that I'm giving it a nice blend. And what I want to show you is that you don't have to have lots of product. So I'm going to take a bit of the water, take off the excess, and then pick up that very dark Villainous Potion and just reinstate the lines again, just to give a little bit more definition. Just, you can see I'm only lightly sort of touching those lines. I'm sort of kissing the lines, just so you can see that, just to give that a little bit more definition. And then I'll use that Villainous Potion and I'll just go down the line as well, and we'll just add the dark line to the leaf, and then we'll just rinse that, and then we'll take out the excess, and then we'll just sort of blend a little bit of the colour out from the centre of that line. And then I'm going to just pick up that dark purple, some fresh water, and let's pick up this lighter purple, which is the Wilted Violet, and we'll just go in with the Wilted Violet with sort of a touch of colour, just a touch. Take off the excess and just blend that out like so. And then it's got no definition, so we'll take the Villainous Potion. Do you like how I keep forgetting the name? And we'll just take a little bit of that darkness and then we'll just look at the pigment in there. So I'm then going to just blend that out a little bit. Now I can add touches of white to this, just so that it stands out a little bit more. So let's give that a dry with the heat tool. Now, if I dry with the heat tool, that means I can add more of a layer if I wish. But it also allows me to add the white touches as well. Now, if I cut this out and I leave a little bit of a white edge, that will also help to make things pop. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a white edge. And the white edge sort of gives that finishing touch, especially with the sort of no line colouring, with no black lines. And when you see the whole image cut out, you'll be able to see that. And it changes the whole feel of the stamp. Now, if you don't like it this way, you can stamp in your black and still colour it with your Distress Oxides. But I didn't want to come back when I haven't done a video for a bit and do something overly complicated. Not that I ever do anything overly complicated anyway, but something with not too many sort of loads of layers. Just something relatively simple, but still something that we're quite pleased with. And I do it, if I've moved the card out of the way as I was cutting, I do apologise. It's just automatic when you're cutting out to bring it closer to you so it's easier to cut out. So it feels a bit alien to me to sort of move it away from my body. But with the white outline, it pops even more. Let's just wipe this up. And then let's grab our white pen. We just need to make sure that that is working. And I should try it on a black piece of card, but I never do. So we'll just... Now, the thing is, with the white pen, it can pick up some colour from our Distress Oxides. So I'm just sort of lightly adding some of the white highlights, just to show you how it suddenly comes to life. So my white pen looks like so, and it picks up the colour from the oxide. If I want that a little bit more vibrant, I should have I've got a new Posca pen here. I just need to give that a shake. This is brand new. And when you grab a new Posca pen, you need to give that pen a shake. You also need to give that pen sort of a pumping so that you know it is working. And then I could use my Posca pen. And this is just then adding a paint layer, which is a little bit more sort of vibrant than that gel pen. But again, even though opaque, it will pick up some of that colour from the oxide. So let me show you that. So it will pick up that some of that colour from the oxide. So let me show you an alternative method. If you don't want it to bleed through, I've then got this Dr. PH bleed proof white, and it does exactly what it says in the tin. It's bleed proof. So I can pick up this white, coat my brush, and then I can add the white to the... You don't need much. You can actually water this down. It's very sort of pigmented. There we go. And you can add this white. And this will stay white because it's bleed proof. And obviously you need a fine brush just to add that. Now you can add this to a paint palette, and once it's set you can just reactivate. Now the only thing you need to be aware of, this is you need to give your brush a good clean afterwards. Good clean afterwards, she says, with that much colour on a non-stick craft sheet. But the white stays in there for quite a while. You need to give it a really good, thorough clean. And now when you're working, you'll probably have a jar of water just on one side. But now if we pick that up, we've got some beautiful vibrancy there, some beautiful depth of colour. So then I can add this to my project. And because that colour is in the background, it then all works nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make that pop a little bit more. So I'm going to grab some washi tape. It's around #44. And this washi tape has got lots of different words on there that I designed. And in a way, it doesn't really matter what it says. You're doing it as a background, and that's the point. You're just creating a background with it. And try to make it sort of more random, not regimented. So let's add there. Don't get too stressed about it. It's a background. I do like sort of having an edge that's not sort of straight. So I do end up faffing, but you can fast forward when I'm faffing. That's part of the videos for me, that you see everything. So let me just... I do videos a little bit different than everybody else. I show warts and all, but that's what makes us different. We all do things in a different way, and that's what makes being creative so much fun, that we're all so different. Wouldn't it be boring if we were all the same? Now, if you want, you can start your tearing off with a pair of scissors. That's it. I just need to make it sort of a little bit more jagged. It's more appealing for me that way. That's better. Just a little bit more of the jagged. That's it. So then you end up with bits everywhere. So then I've got my floral, and that black just makes it pop a little bit more. Let's just thicken that out a bit. And I love to play around just so you can see that. It just really pops against that. Let's remove some of these bits here. And then you can look at that. Let's have a little bit here. We'll just extend that up a little bit. So you're not hiding the colours, you're just giving some contrast. That's much better. Just lovely. So I'm then going to take another stamp. And I just want a fine text. So this works quite nicely, the Meander 1066. And this little fine text works nicely because it doesn't overpower anything. It just gives me a bit of text in the background. And it talks about, you know, it's the garden and everything, so it's fine. I can never judge which is the right way up, so we'll just have to stamp. And I think we'll stamp that in the grey. In Morning Mist VersaFine Clay. So it's that way, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to take my stamp, and what I can do is I can sort of visualise now where my flower is going to go. So I'm just going to sort of add a little bit of text just to the edge of the washi tape, as if it's all part of the same design, sort of it sort of flows. So just using that Morning Mist, the grey VersaFine ink. I have to keep the black out of the way because, knowing me, I'll stamp with the wrong colour because it's so easily to do. It's extending my composition just a little. There we go. So we've just extended the composition. Now what I have done is I have stamped with a permanent ink that has got a good open time, which stays wetter longer, and because of that, and I've stamped on this oxide ink is a layer above the card, and therefore it's not as absorbent as stamping straight onto the white card. So what I need to do is make sure that I give that just a little bit of a blot, because some of that ink will come off. But what we've done is sort of extended that design. So now we can take our floral and add that here, which works rather nicely. So because I'm creating a card, I can add a little bit of dimension because I often hand deliver, or I will wrap in tissue and make it something special. So let's just add a little bit of my pin flare glue. I feel like I haven't had these products out for months. It's only been Christmas. But isn't it strange? So let's just add that there. And we won't press that down too much, just so that we've got that definition to our design. A little card, and it doesn't take me long to make a mess. Now on the periwinkle stamp set, I have got the actual words periwinkle here, so I'm going to use that. Let's just grab another acrylic block. I can tidy up afterwards. And we'll use our black ink for that periwinkle wording. And it's a small word, so you don't need too much pressure when you're stamping. Let's just move that card just to make it a little bit easier to cut out. And let's just have a look. I love the contrast of the white. You could use the Vinca Minor as well, wording, but I absolutely love the contrast of that white against this coloured background. So we'll just add our periwinkle. And just think how many of your floral stamps, whoever's floral stamps you've got, you could do with this. Let's just add that there. That's it. I love the sort of stark contrast of that pop of white. It makes me happy. It really does. Now, after I've gone and cleaned my brush, I want to have some more of this bleed proof. So let's just put some of that on there. Hopefully that's enough, and hopefully I can get some splatters just from a little brush like this. And what I'm going to do is just add my splatters to my design. Now this, because it's bleed proof, these splatters will then stay white. And I'm just sort of tapping that against my finger. You can, if you want, just flick so you get bigger splatters, but that's lovely. Let's clean that up, and then we'll just give that a little bit of a clean so that it doesn't stick on there. So then we've got that contrast, which I just love that, nice and simple. So we'll then add that to a black mat that is 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, because the black mat echoes the black that's here, and I really like that. So let's just add a little bit of that. Just adding a little bit more adhesive, because obviously I've had that moisture on my card, and we just want to make sure that it does stick down properly. So just adding probably a little bit more adhesive than I would normally. Obviously you would let your splatters dry. I don't, I just carry on with it. Let's just bend that card so the middle of the card makes contact, but just looks lovely like that. And if we add that to a 5.5 by 7.5 inch card blank, so that gives me a little bit of a wider border for the when it's put to the card blank, but it makes it pop. Just add that. Now, if you don't want to make this into a card, how about adding this into a journal? And any cards that I make going forward that you are inspired by, you could create them and just add them to your journal. And what you can do when you're adding them to your journal is don't add any pin flare glue, and then you've got it nice and flat, but just so that you can see that. Then if you want to add sort of, you know, bigger splatters, I'm going to use my Posca pen and just add some of those bigger splatters that I love. Just so that you can see that. The floral has got some dimension, but I'm really pleased with that. Especially just using our inks, which is just lovely. It gives a really nice, simple background and a nice, simple start to 2024. So I hope you've enjoyed that and you're inspired to give that a go, maybe in the new year or on New Year's Day even. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.